So I just got out of the world of John Wick, Ballerina, and this is a brand new movie in the world of John Wick, a spin-off of the series, and I had some cautions going into this, being someone who loves the John Wick franchise. I love 1 through 4 so much, and I thought that had such a perfect, beautiful finish, and I was curious on how they were going to build on that world, and I gotta say, they are consistent because I love this world so much, and I love living in it, and I found the Ballerina to do a great job at just sitting in this world, letting us vibe in it with the character that Ana de Armas plays, Eve, as the ballerina, in this case, in the movie. And I found it very fascinating because it does build on stuff from the other John Wick films. In this case, John Wick 3. I found this to be a great tie-in and also build-up of what that world was established with in John Wick 3 of the ballerina area of things, because John Wick kind of runs through that area in the third film, but we don't get a deep dive into it. This movie is allowed to do that because the whole runtime allows for a character who grows through that, and I appreciate that this movie doesn't try to be a John Wick clone. It doesn't try to copy the vibes and aesthetics of John Wick 1 through 4. It does have that flavor. It does feel consistent in that world, but I found this movie to have its own identity, and that was what I was really relieved to have, because that could have easily been something that could have been wasted. Now, I thought this movie did a great job at least keeping consistent with having character at the forefront, but not copying John Wick at the center of it. Yeah, first this movie starts off and you think it's gonna go on a revenge plot. You think it's gonna go on this thing, you know where it's going to lead, because you've seen the John Wick formula, you've seen the revenge plot start off, and I like how this movie starts off with that pace of almost John Wick 1, then immediately throws you into an action scene, immediately throws you off, and it actually ends up being an action movie from the very jump, and less than 10 minutes in. You know, the first John Wick does a build up to it, it does a naturalistic kind of lead as you learn about the character. This character is born and bred through that life. John Wick kind of is too, but in that world, in that movie, we're met with a character who has already been through the shit. He's already been through the training, and he's going back to it. In this case, we get to see a character go through it, and I really enjoyed that aspect of this. It did a great job at providing, I think, a new perspective on the John Wick world without making it feel cheap or ham-fisted in being a spin-off film at the same time. I was very impressed with how it was able to subvert my expectations. Anytime you thought it was going to go a certain direction, it would go pivot, it would change, but still stay within the plot. It never felt like I lost focus in that. I will say, I did find the villain and the antagonistic presence to be not as interesting, but this movie does a great job, I think, with Ana de Armas as a performer and just telling us her story, that I was able to look past that as much here. And I thought the pacing just really worked for the benefit. This movie moves by so fast. I blinked and I felt like we were in the third act already, but I never felt like we were rushing through things. There's one quick aspect of it, I will say, that did feel kind of rushed. It's a character beat that I thought we could have lived in a little more to really feel the emotional impact coming from the character's past. With that being said, though, the movie still delivers on what it's trying to be in an action piece. When it tells its story through its action, it is a visual language of this film, not just action for the sake of action. I'm glad this movie was consistent with that. We learn a lot about how Eve as a character develops through the way she fights, through the way she progresses through each supposed level of this, because it does feel like a really badass level of video game at times. Through those so-called levels in this story, I found there to be a cool poetic symmetry with what was going on with Eve's mission compared to what she was as a child, and I thought that was really interesting. And I like that this movie kind of went there instead of just being a straightforward revenge plot. That is there, it is an aspect of this movie, but it's not the only thing on the film's mind. And that's what makes it stand out from the other John Wick films. This movie isn't always go, go, go too. It does have great pace, but I do like that it actually does take time to slow down and have dialogue moments with characters, especially in the first act. I found the first act to be a nice kind of riff on the John Wick plot while still subverting our expectations on what we expect it to be, while the second half of it was a straightforward action flick through and through. We see the characters just moving through level of action, but each time it's a progression in the stakes as well, and we see how that progresses, especially when you meet other characters like Norman Reedus and how he fits into the plot. I thought he was very well handled here as well. I thought it was a great addition. I didn't expect him to be in this either. Like, I've forgotten he was in the marketing. It was just something I totally blanked on, but I thought he was great. He was brief while in it, but when he was in it, it was fun. It was just a good time, and I thought it was self-aware without it being beaten over the head of fourth wall breaking. I felt like roles in this movie that were picked, it's like the John Wick franchise knows some of these faces are famous, but it never feels too ham-fisted. It never feels like it's being like, hey, look at this celebrity cameo. It's just cool to see them, and I really appreciate how this series is able to kind of stay consistent with doing that with appearances as well. As much as I was enjoying the spin-off aspect of this movie, I did get worried when we started to get a little more tie-in into other things related to the John Wick films, but thankfully it never got overbearing, and it never felt like it took over the plot too much necessarily, and anything that was in there was still consistent within character of other stuff going on, without keeping it vague. Don't want to give it away in case you stayed away from the marketing. When that aspect comes, I thought it was really well utilized, and it actually worked for the thematic differences between what Eve is compared to other characters in this world. So I thought that really worked in a smooth aspect on adding to the character of Eve as well. But the true star of this movie, the thing that just is the bread and butter of it, the thing that made me just on the edge of my seat at every moment it was happening, was the action. The action sequences are so great, and I love, again, thematic to the way this movie and story is told, the action in this doesn't feel like it's copying John Wick. It doesn't feel like it's copying the same directorial style as Chad Stahelski in the John Wick films. It's trying to do its own thing. It's trying to feel like its own flavor of how Eve would fight. And we even get that at the start of it, where she is told, it's like, no, fight like a girl. Fight like what makes you stand out. And I like that this movie is a visual showcase of that with her character. Every action scene is so different in how it's utilized, and this movie is great at environmental action. The environment is what is the true character. Every action scene is such a beautiful display, like almost a dance in the fighting. It feels like a ballet while also showing the use of environment. Like, I really love certain moments. Without giving too much away, there's a grenade sequence in this that felt like something I would do in Halo in the most satisfying and fanboy way possible. It had me laughing. There were some moments in the physics that made me question it, but honestly, I don't even care. It was so fun. Damn all disbelief on that sequence alone. The grenades were so much of fun, impactful moment. The sound design was great. The sound design feels so different from the John Wick films too, and it felt just very environmental. I love the way Dolby Atmos really utilizes the sound, and the bass was there. Like, seeing this in a theater was great. Given that this movie is less moment by moment than the John Wick films, you have more time to kind of explore different locations and environments with each character too, and we're able to kind of sit and breathe between transitions of action sequences, and I found that very nice and refreshing for this film as well. And I thought it did a good job at, again, differentiating itself from the other movies, which is something I was concerned about, when going into this, that I was really concerned that they were going to feel like they were just copying the series and it would feel redundant. It would feel like, what was the point of making a spin-off? But through teeing us up for what we think is going to be a generic formula story of a John Wick story, it actually subverts our expectations with what it wants to be, while still delivering a great action film. There's even moments in very scenes that call this kind of way the movie's telling the story out. Like, there's a moment that feels like, okay, this is just a great moment that would be in a John Wick movie as well. It's quiet, it's nice. And then out of nowhere, something happens that just kind of pulls you right out of it, but in a cool way. It completely flips you on your head and what you expect the scene to be. And just without giving it away, it was very clever. And it's almost like a stepping stone and a visual metaphor for what this movie is overall. And I really enjoyed that. There were some moments where I did question timeline-wise where exactly this was taking place, but by the movie wrap-up, I was able to kind of piece it together in my head again. I started to think back to other points in this universe overall in the franchise. I appreciate this movie also trusting its audience to sit with that. It didn't want to over-explain itself with exactly where in the timeline it was, at least for the most part, except for one scene. Won't give it away, but again, to keep it vague, there was one small moment, kind of a nitpick, that felt just too heavy of a tie-in to one thing, where I felt like, all right, that was a little obvious, kind of stealing away from the story at hand. It's like a few minutes though. It's not very long at all. Does not destroy the movie whatsoever, but it is something that is apparent and something I was worried about. It did happen for kind of a second, but I appreciate that the movie kind of is self-aware in that and does not indulge in it too much. And I kind of give Ballerina props for that. I really enjoyed this movie. It was a blast of a spinoff in the John Wick world. Does not do anything to hurt the canon or story of John Wick. I think Eve is a badass character and a great addition to this universe. Overall, this movie just does stand out on its own too as a spinoff in the world. I really enjoyed it. I had a blast with it. It just delivered on what I wanted. I really got all I wanted from this film, and I'm so excited. It put a smile on my face. Very relieved. So glad. Thank you so much, you guys, for watching. This is my out-of-theater reaction for the Ballerina in the World of John Wick spinoff. Thank you so much for watching. What did you guys think of the movie? Are you excited? What's your favorite John Wick movie? What is your least favorite? And also, where do you rank Ballerina among the John Wick films? Thank you so much for watching Scatterbrain Reviews. I will see you next time.